Hello viewers, and welcome to another edition of the Book Review Log. I am your book reviewer, and today we're going to review the book Finders Keepers by Stephen King. I did not intend to read this quickly, but that could be good for the book. As you know, I did a review of I Am Malala yesterday and just told you that I was reading Stephen King, and yesterday I think I was halfway done, and so today I thought, okay, I'm just going to do my kind of obligatory number of pages. When I read a book, I'd like to give myself, or not make myself exactly, but kind of require myself to read 100 pages a day. And so I was going to do that, and then I had a lot of time today, so I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll just finish it. And one of the good reasons why is because today is September 21st, which is Stephen King's birthday. So happy birthday, Stephen King. And I thought, well, that would be really neat if I could review a book on his birthday. I'm not sure if I've done that in the past. I do. Every year I like to read a book on his birthday. I'm a birthday expert, so I don't know why that day is drilled in my head, so don't think I'm weird, but I know I am. So anyway, his book, Finders Keepers, is the second in what's now being called the Bill Hodges trilogy. This is the same trilogy that you got in Mr. Mercedes. So it does have the same characters, or some of them. Kind of almost all of them are mentioned in the book, whether one, just kind of passing story or actual characters in this story. So, and I'll get to them in a second. It does start, there's kind of a weird way to start it. In the beginning of the book, it bounces between the years 1978 and 2014, which is when the book was written. As many fans of Stephen King know, that's really typical with his books, where he likes to bounce between years, and people may find that confusing. I used to, but now I'm over it. And what happened in 1978 is a writer by the name of John Rothstein is a retired man. He's, I think, in his 70s. His house has been burglarized, and his burglars, there's 3 of them, actually wake him up, and you soon learn that there's a ringleader and then 2 cronies, and the ringleader just doesn't want money from Rothstein, even though that is what he assumes. Rothstein soon realizes that this man is pretty intelligent and knows about his books, particularly one book's this book series that carries the character of Jimmy Gold. So these are like the Jimmy Gold stories. And so along with money, his burglar wants notebooks that John Rothstein has written the rest of the Jimmy Gold stories. And because John Rothstein had published 3 books, but his burglar knew that there was more. And so what happens is that through the burglary, this wasn't intended, but through the burglary, his burglars kill him, John Rothstein, and so his burglars run away with money and these notebooks that they were looking for. So the ringleader of this burglar trio, you'll learn his name is Morris Bellamy, and at the time of the burglary, he is 23 years old. And so you follow him through this 1978, and you kind of lose him in 1979 for reasons that I'm not going to say because I want you to read the book. But I will say that what Morris Bellamy did with the money and the books is that he put them in a trunk, like an old-fashioned trunk, and buried them. And with ideas like, I'm going to get this later, but fate intervened and he didn't get them. And so jump ahead about 36 years till 2014, and there's a young boy named Pete Sobers. Actually, this is more like 2010. And Pete Sobers is a 13-year-old boy, and his family is down on its luck. What links them also to Mr. Mercedes is that if you remember, if you've read Mr. Mercedes, which I hope you do before you read Finders Keepers, is that at the beginning of Mr. Mercedes there's a tragic accident where a Mercedes runs over a whole bunch of people and kills several and injures several more. Pete Sobers' father was one of those who was injured. He wasn't killed, but he was injured pretty badly where he needed to go into, he broke his legs, and so he needed to go into therapy, and his family wasn't doing that well to begin with because Peter's father, who I believe is named as Tom, was out of a job. So that's why he was at this civic center in the first place, was to attend a job fair. And so having this accident, just added to their mounting debt, because again, Tom couldn't work because of his legs, and so they were just living on Peter's mother's salary, and Peter's mother was a teacher, so she didn't make much. And so Peter is living on Sycamore Street in this fictitious town. I think it's near Ohio. He never tells, but through clues and other things, I'm guessing that he lives in Ohio. And it just happens to turn out that Peter, and you'll learn this later, he lives in the same house as Morris Bellamy did, and Morris Bellamy hid this trunk filled with cash and notebooks near his house. And Peter was walking along kind of a dirt path behind his house, and he happened to see the trunk from erosion. The trunk was unburied, and he opened up the trunk and found money and notebooks and took all of that with him. And he thought, well, the money is a godsend because this, my family isn't doing well, and so I will use the money to help my family. And so he starts to do that, and so he does that for a number of years until the money runs out. And so then Peter, through fault of his own, but I'm not going to tell you because I want you to read this book, he finds himself in trouble, and he ends up going, because he's trying to sell these notebooks, and so he ends up getting in trouble and somehow finding himself being talked to by Bill Hodges, who, as you remember, is from Mr. Mercedes. And Bill is a retired cop at this point. I think he was still retired during Mr. Mercedes, but he and people from his Mr. Mercedes stint, I guess, has opened, I'm assuming, like a bondsman place, because they don't talk about it much, but they catch like people who are trying to flee, and Bill Hodges also appears in court sometimes. So the company that he runs is called Finders Keepers, which is partly why the book is titled that way. So that's where I'm going to end the book, because again, it is very new and I want you to read it. I liked it. I don't want to say I loved it, which is what I was going to say, but I really liked it. I wasn't sure if I was. It was near, I think I liked it better than Mr. Mercedes. When you read it, you will become, you'll think, wow, this sounds like one of Stephen King's other books, and you're right. I won't tell you what it is previously, or I won't tell you what it is, but because again, I want you to read this book. But I really enjoyed it because I enjoyed this other book that he wrote that it compares to. Excuse me. And one thing that I kind of don't like about Stephen King books is I'm kind of critical about his endings. Sometimes, it seems like he builds up so much in his books. It builds up and builds up, and then the ending just kind of goes down like that. This one didn't. I was really happy. I'm like, wow, and I thought to myself, like, wow, this is actually a really good ending. So, again, that's all the spoil of the ending you're going to get, but hopefully when you read this, you will enjoy it as well. The next book that I'm going to review is The Diary of Anne Frank. And so that's it. I bid you all farewell and happy reading.